When you hear HPV vaccine, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's cervical cancer. But what if I told you that's only about half the story? The truth is actually way more surprising, and it all starts with a huge common misconception.
You see, ever since it was introduced, the entire conversation around this vaccine has pretty much been dominated by one single question.
And that question right there gets to the heart of a massive and frankly dangerous public perception issue. And look, while the vaccine is an absolute powerhouse against cervical cancer, focusing only on that creates a massive blind spot, especially when it comes to men's health.
To really understand the whole picture here, we have to talk about the huge, and often completely overlooked, impact of HPV on men. This quote, it comes from the story of Michael Becker. He was a biotech executive who tragically died from an HPV-related cancer. He spent his final years fighting for awareness, advocating fiercely for everyone to get the vaccine, especially boys, because he knew his own illness was completely preventable. His story is just a powerful reminder of what's really at stake here.
And Michael Becker's story isn't some rare exception. This number, almost 16,000, that's how many men in the US are diagnosed with an HPV-related cancer every single year. This isn't a small problem. It's a major public health issue. And to put that number in perspective, just look at the overall stats. Out of nearly 39,000 HPV-related cancers every year in the US, men account for over 40% of them. And the most common ones for men, cancers of the mouth and throat. So this is not a fringe issue at all. HPV is a huge factor in men's health.
And that gap in perception leads to a very real problem. This data from 2016 shows that while about half of teen girls were up to date on their shots, only 37.5% of teen boys were. That's a massive gap in protection, and it's a direct result of this myth that the vaccine is really just for girls.
So okay, with such a clear and present risk for everybody, how does this vaccine actually protect us? Well, the science behind it is both really elegant and incredibly safe. The key to it all is something called viral-like particles, or VLPs. The best way to think of these is like a training dummy for your immune system. Scientists take harmless little proteins from the virus's surface and they build them into a structure that looks exactly like HPV on the outside, but it's totally empty on the inside. It's basically a ghost of the virus. So, this builds your immunity in 3 really simple steps. First, the vaccine introduces these harmless ghosts. Second, your body's immune system sees them, thinks it's a real threat, and builds this powerful army of antibodies to fight it off, creating a memory of the enemy. So then, third, if the actual HPV virus ever shows up, that pre-trained army is ready and waiting to destroy it on contact.
And this is maybe the most crucial point of all. The vaccine cannot cause HPV. I'll say it again, it cannot give you the virus. Because there's no actual virus inside, just that empty shell, there is zero risk of getting the infection or any related cancers from the shot itself. It's all training, no threat.
So if the vaccine is so effective and the risk to men is so high, why did this whole perception gap happen in the first place? Well, the answer really lies in the history of how the vaccine was first tested and rolled out. The very first clinical trials focused on the most well-known outcome of HPV, which is cervical cancer. So researchers tracked how well the vaccine could prevent precancerous lesions in women. And because of that, the first approvals and recommendations were for girls. It wasn't until about 5 years later that routine use was recommended for boys, and ever since, public perception has just been playing catch-up.
Which of course brings us to the absolute critical question. We know that oral and throat cancers are the big ones in men, so does the vaccine specifically prevent them?
So while the final long-term trials are technically still ongoing, simply because these cancers can take decades to develop, the scientific consensus is crystal clear. The biology is identical. The vaccine prevents the HPV infection that causes cervical cancer, and it's highly, highly likely it works the exact same way to prevent the infections that cause oral cancers.
So putting all of this together, who should be getting this vaccine and when? Well, the guidelines are clear, and they're all about providing protection long before any potential exposure.
The standard recommendation is to start the series between the ages of 9 and 15, and that just requires 2 doses. For those a little older, from 15 to 26, it's a 3-dose series. And what if you're 27 or older? It might still be an option. The best thing you can do is just talk to your doctor about your own personal situation and see if it's right for you.
And the reason this whole conversation is so important is simple. This vaccine really works. It is nearly 100% effective at preventing infection from the most dangerous, most common cancer-causing strains of HPV. It protects everyone who gets it.
We have a tool that can prevent tens of thousands of cancer cases every single year, for everyone. This isn't just a vaccine for one gender or for one type of cancer. It's a vaccine against cancer itself. And the choice to use it, that's yours.